Welcome to the IT Experts podcast, the only podcast to help MSPs scale to 1 million, and if already there, get to 5 and go faster. At the end of the day, isn't it all about building a business that works for you rather than you for it? I hope you enjoy the show. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the IT Experts podcast. Today I've got really exciting. We're going back over to America again, which is absolutely amazing. And today we're talking to Brian Gillette from Feel-Good MSP. Now, Brian is a sales consultant with over a decade of experience in B2B sales, but he is now helping countless MSPs build reliable pipelines, which I thought would be a rather great idea to have him on the show. So welcome to the show, Brian. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's a different time of day here than it is there.
It is. It's early for you and it's late for me. It's dark over here. I'm not sure if it's dark over there, but anyway, the magic wonders of the world clock, and here we are today. So, thanks for coming on the show, Brian. Really great to have you here today. You know, we're gonna dive back into this whole sales thing and why MSPs struggle sometimes to feel confident, and more importantly, to kind of feel good about selling. It's not something that's naturally a natural thing for techie business owners to do. And we're going to run through a bit of a methodology today to help you to become more confident in sales and also to kind of feel good about it, which is what Brian's main message is. So before we get underway, Brian, just let everybody know who you are, what you do, and who you help.
Sure. I'm a sales consultant. I specialize in helping managed service providers ever since I was a VP of sales for an MSP from 2017 to the end of 2020. And so now what I do is I sort of help MSPs build sales infrastructure and processes that they can reproduce in, more salespeople and more employees to book MRR clients every month.
Excellent stuff. And how do you work with MSPs, Brian? What's the main way that you support MSPs?
Yeah, so we do a sort of a sales accelerator, a 3-month kind of intensive cohort-based program. Okay. Where MSPs all over the world come together in small bunches, and then we'll sort of build take them through a three-phase process of building their sales philosophy, and then we build their sales playbook, and then we turn on a lead gen engine to start generating opportunities.
Cool. What changes or what differences do you see in different MSPs across the world? I know this isn't one of the questions, but I thought we'd just dive straight in on it, because I was actually talking to someone earlier on today, and they said that MSPs in the UK, and I'm not quite sure what he means by it, well, I do know what he means, are about 5 years behind MSPs in the States. What does that mean from a sales point of view? And do you resonate with that? Does that kind of make sense to you?
Let me think. I think I could probably make an argument for that. I think that fundamentally every human being in the world all wants the same thing, which is why I think that fundamentally sales doesn't change that much.
Yeah.
Of course, there's, isms with every culture of who talks first, who speaks last, how negotiation works, of course. But in the end of the day, everybody wants to avoid pain and accomplish all their goals. Which is what motivates all human behavior.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So I don't think that British people are experiencing less pain than Americans. So I think if you can learn how to sell, you can sell anything anywhere. But I think what they might be saying, well, I don't know. I just know that in the United States, business sort of prides itself on being competitive.
Yep.
Whether that be good or bad.
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of the other world sort of cultures and marketplaces are just sort of a little bit more, can I say mature?
Say whatever you like.
Yeah.
Say whatever you like.
I think that in America, competition is sort of stoked in a way where we are kind of, everybody is pitted against everybody. Largely. That's just sort of the nature of what we do. And I'm saying this amorally, right? Like this isn't a good or a bad thing. I'm just making an observation. And so I could see how somebody might say that in a lot of the world where there isn't so much sort of pressure to crush other people, maybe you might consider it behind. But was this person who said this American?
No, they weren't. And they were from one of the vendors, and it's quite interesting. It's because you said the word world. So I apologize for this slight digression, but he was basically saying, he says, look, the MSPs in the States, there's like loads of communities out there. There's like 30 different communities, and everybody's, so in America we've got, you got Chris Weiser, Robin Robbins, and all of those guys, and then from a British point of view, very in your face, this is how it's working, and kind of resonates with what you were saying about the competitiveness. Then I was talking to another vendor the other week, and they were talking about MSPs in Germany, and they were just saying there's very, very, very few like ambitious, growth orientated MSPs below £1 million, because German MSPs, they're either going to do it or they're not going to do it. So they're not going to muck around and have a £500,000 business or a 250 grand kind of lifestyle business. I'm either going to build a business that's going to be the best business that I can build, or I'm just not going to do it. So it's quite interesting to see the different shifts around the world. And obviously the English, or the British, whatever you want to call us, stiff upper lip, we're a little bit concerned about this. Everyone's all been a techie business owner. And this is why this podcast is all about confidence. But it's just interesting just to see if you see any difference with the clients that you work around the world in their attitudes and their behaviors. And I guess more importantly, their beliefs as well. Because a lot of sales confidence is all about beliefs, isn't it? It's about what you think you can and can't do.
Here's what I will say is that in the States, we have a lot more of these, like it was a tech or a plumber or a house painter, and he was sick of having a boss one day, and he decided, you know what, I'm going to do this thing myself. And he filed an LLC, and now he's a business owner. But is he really a business owner, or is he just a guy who didn't want a boss? And those are two different things, right? And so I think what we see is a lot of people who actually haven't been through as much professional maturing. They don't have this sort of preparedness, because it's just sort of more encouraged and a little bit easier maybe to just start a business here. So a lot of MSPs are really just a break-fix IT guy who installs RMM agents and call themselves an MSP, but they're not really managing proactively. So for that reason, I think that might be one of the, like, how people get into IT is probably the biggest driving force of the cultural differences between the US and other countries.
I think that's very typical in the UK as well. A lot of the most of the clients, if not all the clients we work with, have all been techies at some point or another, and they've grown up from there. But it's interesting how the influencer strategy can drive and guide the ambitious ones who want to grow and make them competitive, or others. But anyway, there we go. There's a slight little digression there. But I always think it's interesting when you talk to people from different countries on how they see MSPs and what their driving forces are. So I've spoken about this a couple of times, and I'm sure you've spoken about this every single day of your life. MSPs find it difficult to sell. It's not their comfort zone. It's not their happy place. As we've just said, they're probably more technical than anything else. Are you seeing any shift in that since like the pandemic and how the world economy is going right now? What's your kind of view on the sales landscape for the for the ambitious MSP who'll be listening to this podcast today?
That's a really good question. What I'm seeing, my sort of theory for where sales is going for this year, for 2023, is a bigger shift toward emotional intelligence.
Love it.
I think that sales, here's something I've always said, is that sales culture has always been 1 to 2 decades behind the rest of business culture in emotional maturity.
You're so right. That's absolutely spot on, isn't it? Yeah.
Because in sales, you could do things that, back in the 80s, you could do anything you wanted to anybody and nobody could complain about it. But today, if you don't work in sales and you say a certain thing to somebody in your office, you can lose your job that day. But in sales, it feels like we're in this time capsule where a lot of these like antiquated sort of activities, antiquated phrases, antiquated mindsets just get stuck. Yeah. And there's a lot of reasons for that, but sales largely is making this shift towards like, oh, maybe we should just be kind to be around. And maybe my quality of life is more important than how much money I make. Those are like new ideas in sales. But of course, the rest of the world's been doing that for a long time. Yeah. And I think that what we're seeing, what's fascinating is you see what goes viral on LinkedIn is anything that talks about vulnerability or mental health.
Yeah.
And there's a reason that it goes viral, because everybody actually really wants to talk about it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right. And I think the whole emotional intelligence, understanding how you're wired, your profile, whether you use DISC or whatever else it might be, our tagline is to help you scale to 1 million confidently. And if you're already there, get to 5 and go faster, because it is about that confidence. The guys that come into your world and into our world, are a little bit rabbit in the headlights. How do I approach this? I had 3 guys on the call this morning. Brian, I tell you, I wish I was them, 24 and 28-year-old running a £1.8 million MSP, and just said, look, we just need a bit of help in the business side of things. I've gone, how envious was I? It was like, what an opportunity have they got, for this business in this world, asking for help at that young age. It was just like, I said, you guys have no idea what you've got coming ahead of you. It was wonderful. We'll continue the conversation next week, but asking for help is a massive step. When people come to you and they say, hey, I've seen some of your content. How does this stuff work? What does it look like? And this also beds in nicely with the, stop selling tech, stop selling technical. You're not selling Office 365. You're selling, your collaboration software and things like that. And it's peeling away, isn't it? It's trying to get people to understand that a buying conversation is better than a selling conversation. And, that's what we want to touch on today and understand how that is. So I think unless you've got anything to add, I think we just need to dive in and get stuck into the 3-step feel-good close. So we're going to rinse you for as much as your IP as we possibly can today, as you can imagine.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. Talk to us about your framework. How does this kind of work for you? How do you help MSPs to sell a bit more confidently and feel good about it as well? Because that's the tag, isn't it?
That's right. I'll say that the fundamental core belief of the Feel Good Close is that how you make people feel is more important than what you say to them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And
I like that.
I really just sort of doubled down on the fact that if people can trust, what do they say? Like, people can't buy from you unless they know you, but then they got to like you, but then they got to trust you. Okay, fine. But what are we really saying is that how you make people feel is a really important part of whether or not they want to do business with you. That is an increasing truth, especially in 2023, where we're making more and more pivot towards this. You have to be able to demonstrate that you have an emotional intelligence if you want to have long, multiple conversations with executives at companies. You just have to. And so the Feel Good Close is this idea of how can we make buying from me and selling my product a symbiotic feel-good experience so that people will appreciate what the process was like. So I've broken it down into really three pillars, as you mentioned. The first one being solution. And I like to say you have to focus on the solution. The biggest trap that technicians or that subject matter experts who aren't salespeople fall into is they try to educate people into buying their product by telling them what they need. And there's an age-old saying that telling isn't selling.
Yeah.
So you can't walk into a business and say, your firewall's 4 years old. This is this, this is this, this is this, this is why you need me. They're going to go, okay, great. Why don't you send me a proposal? Thanks for coming in. Because you just tried to be the hero of this story and they have to be the damsel, and nobody wants to be that. Right? So you didn't do anything because you told them something. But if I can get them to say it, it's a lot more significant. The way we do this is we just focus on what are we trying to accomplish. I'll use this analogy that you're an IT, you're a technician. There was at one point the first time that you had to build a server. And maybe most IT guys are just kids who like goofing around and build PCs and they figure it out as they go, right? But if you need to build servers over and over again all day, every day, you have to have a strategy. You have to have a standard operating procedure, right? This is how you build servers. And maybe the first couple of times you have to figure it out loosey-goosey, but your procedure can't be 3 vague steps. Number 1, I lay out all the pieces. Number 2, I stick together the obvious ones. And number 3, I find whatever's left and I try it that way. What's going to happen? It's going to take you forever to build that server, and you're probably going to build it wrong. Fair statement?
Exactly.
So why do we sell like this? People go, well, I have no idea how to sell, but I'm going to sell using 3 vague steps. Well, first I'll go and I'll tell them all about myself. Then I'll look at all their IT, and then I send them a quote. Guess what's going to happen? It's going to take too long. and you're probably not going to close the deal because you don't really have a clear vision of what you're trying to accomplish, right? The solution is me and the customer are working together against the problem.
Yeah. The business problem this is, isn't it?
That's right. The business problem that's causing pain to the stakeholder, to the point of contact, which is why they decided to sit in this conversation. So you have to have a playbook. You have to know, okay, first do this, then do this. As detailed as you would be if you're training a new technician to build a server and you need to write an SOP for them, why don't you put together a playbook for yourself for how to sell? And just like anything, once you've built 500 servers, you don't have to look at the SOP, but there's a reason you do it perfectly every time. It's because you did it the right way over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to sell. You have to know how to sell the right way, and you have to do it over and over again. And this is what's going to help us really, really focus.
Love it. I love it. So that's about the process. That's about, because the scalable process that you create, you want that process so that anybody then operates the business in that same way against the company values, selling on the solution, rather than having people going out there and doing different. Because the whole sales thing in MSPs is a real, we have quite a heated discussion sometimes in our client groups about, we don't have salespeople, we have account managers. And account managers will go out there and they'll obviously, help support and grow the existing accounts themselves. But they're going in with this, what problem have you got in the business and how can we match it with your solution? So they're kind of, although they are in the sales funnel and on the sales spectrum, for want of a better phrase, they're not hardcore sales going out there knocking on people's doors saying, hey, do you want some IT? Do you? Hey, do you want some IT? Do you? Hey, do you want some IT? They're actually going there and building those relationships and then acting in the same way that, that you've just mentioned about that solution.
Right. Well, account managers, account executives, business development reps, at the end of the day, they all actually have a job. Selling is a conditional relationship. I'll even say business is a conditional relationship. So a big pet peeve of mine is when certain business owners, they won't do any cold outreach. They'll say, well, we're word of mouth because we're a relationship-based business. Or people who say like, well, I don't believe in that kind of selling because I think it's disingenuous. I think you should have a relationship with people. I remember I was talking to a company in Texas and he took every single discovery call. He took them out to lunch and bought them lunch for a discovery call.
Wow.
And I asked him, why are you doing that? Because he's like, well, because this is just whatever. This is how I was raised. At the end of the day, when you peel a couple of layers back, and these people are doing this because they don't actually know how to build a relationship that depends on performance. They don't actually know how to sell anything. Yeah. So they're trying to treat it like my customers are my family. No, they are not your family. You cannot fire your family. But you have a conditional relationship. Here's what that means. I provide these deliverables and you pay me money for it. We are not family. You're paying me. And the entire relationship is built on the fact that I keep doing my job and you keep doing your job.
Yeah. I
just think we shouldn't apologize for that. I think selling should always be called selling. I don't think we should bake it into a pie and hide it. I think we should say, this is what I do, this is who I help, and this is who it's for.
I think the important thing as well is that, and it maybe this comes around from selling a service compared with selling a product. People were shifting tin years ago. They're selling a product. It does stuff. You get it out of the box, you plug it in. But what as an MSP, you're selling a service and you're selling that relationship. So, which leads nicely on to authenticity, isn't it? Number 2.
Yes. This is probably the thing that is the most unique about the Feel Good Close, the most different from other sales practices as a whole. We talked earlier, the need for authenticity and build it in business is increasing exponentially. Yeah. You just can't fake it anymore because, I like to attribute that a lot of business decision makers are millennials. You can say whatever you want about millennials, but we have a world-class BS detector.
We mentioned this before, didn't we?
Right. I mean, it just doesn't, phoning it in, putting on a fake mask while you're selling, it just doesn't get it. Just doesn't cut it anymore. But authenticity, I don't just say you need to be authentic. What I say is you have to fight for authenticity because it needs to go two ways. We all know that buyers are liars. We all know that buyers have built processes to defend themselves from aggressive salespeople. Yeah. So if we want to come in and sell counterculturally and be authentic, be truthful, what it does is it creates a precedent with which we can hold our prospects accountable to actually tell us the truth. And once you sort of jolt people out of the railroad that they're on when they're buying something and say, hey, hang on, you didn't really answer my question. Let me ask it a different way.
Yeah.
Then you can remind them, oh yeah, I'm a person. You're a person. We're trying to actually solve your problem. And I can't do that if you don't tell me what the problem is.
Yeah. Exactly that. And it's built, as you say, it's just building that relationship and understanding how the different languages, because this is where we talk a lot about vision and values, and this is how people understand. If you've gone to the effort of doing your vision and your values, and so is your client, then they understand that you're that type of person, and how we're going to work together, and how we're going to build that relationship together, and know, like, and trust each other, which is what we spoke about earlier, wasn't it?
Right. Exactly. If we went through all this work of defining our own internal culture, and it's crazy how fast MSP owners will abandon their culture on a sales call.
Yeah.
Because we will all turn into codependent people pleasers instantly because we have no idea how to sell as ourselves. And yeah. I have a bunch of material on that. I call that the sales mask, where I actually think it's an identity. It's like a self-worth issue, where if I put on a different voice while I'm selling than I would in my everyday life, it's because I'm telling myself that I have to be a better version of myself in order to sell my product.
Yeah.
It's the same thing we do when we put on a weird voice when we talk to a hotel receptionist, right?
Yeah.
Or when you're on the phone with somebody, you've been on the phone and you're yelling at somebody waiting for them to pick up. Oh my gosh, would you shut up over there, kids? Yes, hello, I'd like to order a large.
That's right, yeah.
Because we're like, well, I can't present my real self. I have to present the better version of myself. If you're doing that while you're selling, it's a sign that you're disassociating, and people are going to tell.
Yeah.
Like, why is this guy acting like this? He's lying to me. And IT people are the white collar mechanics. We fix something that they absolutely need and that they fundamentally don't understand. And they know the value. We all know the value of a good mechanic. When you find a good mechanic that's honest, that charges you a good price, you stay with him forever. It's the same with IT.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly the same. It's exactly the same, isn't it? Yeah.
That's what I think about selling with authenticity. Even when you can demand authenticity from your customers, that actually means being willing to confront customers when they need to be confronted.
Yeah.
But it will counterintuitively build more trust in the long run, because you will be established in your prospect's mind as a leader, as an authority in the world of managed services, because you're like, hey, I've done this a lot of times. I know what you're doing, but this isn't helping. So when they come in and say, yeah, I need an IT company, and we go, well, what's going on? And they go, nothing. We don't have any problems. I just want to get a quote. Like, well, do you want me to just tell you a number, or do you want to really talk? Because I'll give you a number, $1 million. There you go.
Excellent. Right. What's number 3 then?
So number 3 is connection. And this is sort of what makes the sales philosophy of the Feel-Good Close transition into the way we operate the business as a whole. In America, we work 40 hours a week. That's a long work week, right?
Yeah.
That means we spend more time in our office than we spend with our family.
Yep.
If this is going to be worth it at all, we've got to be able to build meaningful connections while we're there. Otherwise, instead of being a person, I went to work with my life. And that was this was, I think, for me, the catalyst for, I need my own sales process. I had a sales job. I was doing what I was doing, but it felt like the more money I made, the less happy I was in my sales job, because I kept having to compromise my sort of connection to myself, or like all the sales training I went through was, this is how you make more money no matter the cost. This is how you compromise what you believe. This is how you compromise how you feel. This is how you deny yourself in order to make more money. And I'm just like, we put a man on the moon 50, 60 years ago. We can do better than this. We can do better as people than this. So connection, though, it's different than relationship, because like I said, that word can be convoluted in sales. We have a conditional bond. I give you something, you give me money. But when we deliver on our promises over and over again, when we tell them something's going to happen and then it happens, when we tell them we're going to do something and then we do it, we can obviously build trust over time. The Speed of Trust is a great book on this topic, where if you don't trust people, you kind of fundamentally can't really grow and evolve, right? Yeah. The team will sort of be stuck at the level of trust. But if we build trust over time, the relationship can start to develop and grow around the deliverables, so that the deliverables it's the chain that binds us. It's the fundamental building block of the relationship. But then we can turn it into so much more. We can turn it into a meaningful connection. But with that trust, we can build more connection. We can enrich our experience as a business professional. We can enrich the relationships that we build. Those things can then, in some ways, even transcend that relationship. And we can start, increasing our customers' loyalty, increasing the likelihood of word of mouth referrals. But now your customers become your super fans when you know how to build connection with them. And then if you need data about your marketplace, you don't have to pay a market research company. You just interview all your customers because they're happy to help you.
Exactly that. What's the best way for MSPs to help build that connection? What sort of steps do you suggest they use?
Well, this is going to sound like a setup, but steps 1 and 2, that's how you build connection. You come in and say, this is what we're here to do. This is how I'm planning to do it. This is what I'm going to need from you. Do you have any questions? The best way to build connection, I would say it this way, is communication. Start by communicating really clearly and accurately. People are more likely to say yes to something if they know what's going to happen. They're more likely to walk through a glass door than a wooden door, because they can see the other side.
Yeah. And
the way you make those doors into glass is you communicate ahead of time. You can't assume that anybody knows how managed service sales work. You might sell managed services all the time. They might only buy managed services twice in their entire career. So they don't know what a discovery call is supposed to be, how long it's supposed to be. They don't know what due diligence means to you. So, we have an agenda for every single call. We have how we intro the call, how we run the call, and then the next steps. And I will have my MSPs rehearse and memorize those agendas.
Brilliant.
And that's the way of people feeling more relaxed, which they can let down all their defenses long enough to be a little bit more present with you. And as that happens, you build these little micro moments of connection that will build on themselves over time.
Excellent stuff. Excellent. So, Brian, do you want to just let everybody know how they can get in contact with you and learn a little bit more about what you guys are up to over there?
Absolutely. Following me on LinkedIn is the best way to hear from me. I post every single day, videos and articles every week. But you can go to feelgoodmsp.com and see the dates for our upcoming workshops. I'm running a workshop every single month this year, and I'll probably be running about 10 webinars as well. So you can sort of learn more about how the Feel Good Close helps MSPs build that sales process, and connect with me there.
Fantastic. Brilliant stuff. Thanks ever so much for helping put this show together and your time this afternoon / this morning. Hope you have a great rest of your day and week, and all the success. Wish you all the success in the business for 2023.
Thanks, Ian.
Nice one. Thanks a lot, Brian. Cheers now.
Thanks for having me.
So I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, I'd love it if you could leave a rating and review on your favourite podcast platform. If you want to learn more about how to take your MSP to $1 million, or if you're already there, go faster, then come and join Stuart Warwick and myself in the Scale with Confidence Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. You go and enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.